time I spend with Jesus. Sweet is the presence of the Lord, and sweet is the way He gently takes me by the hand and helps me down the road that leads to home.
Hello everybody, my name's Terry Henry and I'm back with you again this week. Still have my good friends with me. This is Gordon Blankenship. He is the camp director, camp manager of Lemoyne Christian Service Camp. And then we have my son Corey Henry, who has been a camper and a student assistant helper or student activity helper and different things out at the camp. And so I asked him to be with us as we continue to talk about the importance of church camp. And last time we met, guys, we talked a lot about the experience of camp and what some of our experiences were younger, what some of Corey's experiences are now. We talked about those types of things. But there's a couple of areas that I want us to talk about that maybe people don't consider when they think about church camp. Specifically, I want to make sure we talk about what camps are doing to meet a lot of the special needs that are out there now. This of course covers dietary, this covers medical, this covers all those different areas. And I know from experience working with Lemoyne that you all are really good at this. And so I'd like for you to just kind of share what you all do and just give us some insight into that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up that point. One of the things that we have done to meet the changing climate needs, if you will, of God's people is really begin to structure things in such a way that encourages a healthy environment, a safe environment, and an open environment where individuals can come and be in that safe space. You brought up our special needs programming. Just a few years ago, we opened up a new program called Smiling Stars. And our Smiling Stars is a free day camp that is designed for anyone with developmental needs, specifically. One of the things that we try to do is we try to accommodate physical special needs in our regular programming. However, unfortunately, we're not always equipped to meet the needs of some of the developmental handicaps that are out there today.
Sure.
And so we have created this program that is a one-day event where any individual of any age and their families are encouraged to come and participate and simply rest in God's great creation. Again, that's called Smiling Stars, and it is free. We usually fund that from the generosity of various donors throughout the year.
Sure.
That particular day, they come. They open with worship. They go and we'll have stations set up. They'll fish. They'll hike. They'll do some of the normal activities of our campers. We don't really have class sessions, if you will.
Sure.
Though we do have stations that are designed to be more hands-on, to give them that opportunity to be creative and do things in their own. So they might be coloring, they might be building Legos, they might be doing some of those things. And then, of course, we have a special diet for them that particular day that meets the requirements, if you will, of any specific needs that are there. And then in the afternoon, they'll swim, they'll worship again, and they'll get to go home, having experienced camp the same way that we got to experience camp all those years ago.
Sure. And I'll say from a personal standpoint, as a pastor, we have a young lady in our church that takes advantage of that day. Her family, brings her out and is with her.
And she is such a joy.
She is a joy, and she absolutely loves that day of camp. Yeah. And I know that her and her family are thankful, and some of the other folk who take advantage of it, I've talked to. That feeling is there. So.
Well, we have a wonderful dean for that particular day. Her name is Connie Robertson, and Connie is from the area.
Sure.
And she just does such a fantastic job. She's an aide at the school, and so she does that for her livelihood anyway.
Right.
And so to see her be able to bring that and bring that to the camp and utilize that to minister to
Absolutely.
that beautiful part of God's creation.
Absolutely.
It's such a neat thing.
Absolutely.
Of course, we do expand our needs being met in other areas as well. As I said, we try to, if there's a physical ailment, whether someone's in a wheelchair, whatever it is, we are a fully accessible camp now.
Yes.
Even our primary main multi-purpose building now has an elevator in it to get people up and down to the retreat center sleeping quarters. All of our new cabins, which we'll discuss a little bit more here in a little bit, are ground level and easily in and out. We really try to do everything that we can to make sure that anyone can come, especially with those physical ailments, and those needs be met. We have a lift that can take people in and out, and that young lady that you were speaking of, she's utilized that to get her in and out of the swimming pool. And so we try to meet those needs in our regular programming so that those individuals can just come and experience camp for a week.
Sure.
In that environment and socialize and do all of those things.
Absolutely.
Because we understand that special needs are different levels.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So we try to make sure that everyone is accommodated in some way, shape, or form.
Well, you get that, Corey's in 8th grade, going to be in 9th grade, so you'll be at Niners camp this next summer. You get that kid who's the same age who maybe first week of summer went out, did something silly, broke his leg, and you know.
We always have one or two of those.
We want them to come. We want them to come anyway, and so you know it's helpful in those situations as well. So.
And if we've got a camper that's coming that is a little more physically disabled, we have aides that will be there to assist them. I try to hire one male and one female aide each summer that we may assign to a specific individual to make sure that those physical needs are being met.
Absolutely.
But we even expand that beyond that. Right. You know, you brought up the kind of cafeteria, but in a good way, food in the last week's episode. My wife is our office and hospitality manager. She's in charge of all of that. And one of the big things that we have really tried to do in the last few years is tailor our dietary offerings to match the needs that are out there. And so one thing that we have done at Lemoyne, and we're very excited about this, we're very proud to say this, is we're a nut-free camp.
Right.
We have a camp store.
Well, you still have you.
Well, yeah. The dietary nuts. But yeah, we have a camp store, for example. And we'll sell chocolate bars and cookies and things like that. But we always are mindful of anything manufactured in a plant that manufactures. So we try to take that extra mile. We can't be perfect in all things. And so we encourage people, especially with nut allergies, bring that EpiPen with them. We'll make sure that we work in conjunction with our nurse. They get to keep that on them at all times to make sure that they're safe, but that the nurse is monitoring that situation as well. But we also can go that extra mile for if someone comes with diabetes. And I know that that's something that has affected your family over the years. And so we try to have a specific dietary offering for those individuals to make sure that they are eating healthy and not going to run into issues. We also try to be sensitive to those with a gluten allergy. Now, not gluten sensitive or maybe people that think they shouldn't have gluten. But those that actually have a gluten, we have a special menu that is designed for those, and we work in conjunction with the parents prior to those kids coming. My wife is absolutely amazing at her job. We joke around frequently, I do with other individuals. She's the one that does everything. You know, she's my brain. Yeah, I met her at Lemoyne. So, hey, boys, there's that great opportunity. Yeah, I met her on the basketball. Well, I met her elsewhere, asked her out on the basketball court. She kind of asked me out, but it's controversial, so we won't go.
Potatoes.
But anyway, we really do try to offer anything necessary to get the kids there. We want them to be there. We want them to be safe. And if that extends from offering something for those who are intellectually unable to be there for an entire week, then we meet those needs for that day. If it's a physical ailment, we try to meet that need in any way, shape, or form. If it's a dietary restriction, so we really try to the best of our abilities to be all things for all people.
Absolutely.
At all times.
Absolutely. Because
we believe that that's what Jesus Christ was and is today.
Yes, absolutely. And do everything we can to not turn a kid away.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just it.
Absolutely.
And that's great.
That said, we have a no turn away policy. We have individuals each year who gift some finances to the camp to make sure that if a kid comes, can't afford an entire week, they can pay partial. If they can't pay anything, we want to make sure they're there.
Right.
And so we try to have everything in place to make sure that if there is a kid that wants to come to Lemoyne Christian Service Camp, that kid is there, that they are safe, and that they are drawn near to Jesus Christ.
So let's ask a camper. Corey, when you're at camp, do you feel safe?
Yes.
Well, how about when the storms come? Do you feel safe then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now with the new dorms that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Each one's got a storm shelter in it.
I've never had to go in them, but
well, that's a good thing.
It's good to know that they're there.
Right, absolutely. Well, they're there and utilizing. So that's fabulous. So we're going to get into some stuff, and I'm not trying to leave you out, Corey, and feel free to just kind of input whenever you want. But Gord, I want to talk about and make sure that individuals know. We're talking a lot about Lemoyne Camp because it's near and dear to us. Obviously, you grew up in that camp. You work there now. I'm a dean at that camp. We're a supporting church at that camp. But I want to talk in general, and the only way we can do that is by being specific about our camp, but understanding that it applies to other places as well.
Absolutely. There are a wonderful collection of church camps in the area.
I want to make sure that we hit the importance of churches getting involved with their camp. Financially is important. Hands-on is important. Promoting the camp, sending students. I just want to talk about that importance of churches and how they can help the camps grow and become more than what they are now. Reach more students.
Well, one of the best ways to probably start the segment is the way that I would want to not start any segment.
Go for it.
And that's the financial aspects of things. Because let's just be honest, in this ever-changing climate, things cost more than they used to cost. We are excited and very humbly honored to be able to say that our kids that come to Lemoyne Christian Service Camp only pay a fraction of what it actually costs for them to be there.
Yes.
On average, and there are various research out there on how much a week of Christian camp or any camp costs. But I did a research recently that came up with between $700 to $800 a week for an individual to go to a residential youth camp. Now, again, that's not necessarily a denominational or non-denominational Christian camp. That might be a YMCA program, might be something else. So the national average is somewhere between that $700 to $800 range. Our most expensive week of camp is $230.
Right.
And
which I want to say is absolutely amazing that it is that. I was talking to my brother just yesterday, who's a pastor up in the Chicago-ish area. He's just south of Chicago. And they actually have found an alternative to church camp because it was getting to be close to $400 a person for a week of camp. And they're like, our families just can't do that. And so,
well, we were looking through some old documents the other day. We're rearranging some things here in the off season, and I found a brochure from back when I was a junior in high school. A week of camp was $78. And I was like, wow, it's a little bit different. But when you think about inflation and all the things, to where we are isn't that bad, but considering the amenities that we're able to offer for that. And the reason we're able to do that is first and foremost because God is good and God provides. But He does that through His people. He does that through His churches. He does that through individuals who are loving and gracious and kind. And and we try to encourage them. We don't want anyone to give to Lemoyne out of obligation.
Right.
And I know you as a pastor can appreciate this. When I was a pastor, I tried to share that. I don't want you to give out of obligation. I want to give as praise because God is good and He has done so much for us, and we need to be giving back to Him. But what's amazing is those who do give in praise.
Yes.
And it's such a neat thing to see how God utilizes that. Basically, to break down, for example, our funding, only about a third of our annual budget is actually slated to come from camper registrations. So I guess you could say the camp on average, we charge them 1/3 of what it takes to go to camp, because if we have an annual budget, our budget's really set specifically for the kids, because our mission at Lemoyne Christian Service Camp is to provide a Christian camping environment that encourages young people to engage with Christ. That's a paraphrase. But we also extend that to adults as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the reality is, we are a place that loves and serves Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And we want to encourage them to do so. And so to be able to do that financially from that perspective of only charging 1/3 of what it actually costs for them to come and attend the week. About 1/3 of it also comes from our member churches, and so we thank our brother sister churches in Liberty, and I could just begin to name them, and I would forget someone, so I'm not going to do that. But the generosity of the churches, and we know that that's not an easy thing for churches anymore, because church attendance, there's some struggles out there.
Absolutely.
In the church, and finances is a struggle for the churches, and so to see that commitment from our partner churches is such a blessing to me and the ministry there. But then we have probably about 15%, maybe 20% comes in from the generosity of individuals. Usually we'll have individuals that will just send in a monthly check, and there's those opportunities to do that. They might set up recurring payments on our website, lemoynecamp.org.
Hint.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. You can go to our Facebook page, check us out as well. It's Lemoyne Christian Service Camp.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are a lot of opportunities. And then we also have something else that I'm always excited about, and we have our rental program in the off season.
Yes.
And we stay pretty busy. We're usually down from about middle of November through the end of December. We don't have a lot programmed, and that's intentional so that we can rebuild things and fix things and repair things. But we stay pretty busy. One of my favorite rental groups that comes in is actually a set of groups. And they're quilters. And they're some of the most wonderful, godly women, some of whom maybe aren't necessarily and don't necessarily go to church, but they come and they engage, and it's so neat to see them fellowshipping and interacting. But those programs assist in paying for about 7 to 8% of our annual budget. So we're diversified a bit, but really, when it all comes down to it, God simply provides what's needed through these various things. And so that's kind of how the financial aspects work. But there are ways for churches to get involved in those financial areas. There's ways for families and individuals to get involved in those areas. But really what I get more excited about are the opportunities for service. When I was in grad school, I wrote my paper, and it was actually on my final paper, my thesis was actually on service at Lemoyne Christian Service Camp, because that name, Lemoyne Christian Service Camp, means so much to me. And so we really try to serve. We try to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. And so these rental programs that happen in the off season give us a great opportunity to do that. But all of our programming gives our churches an opportunity to do that as well, in an extended part. Our churches have the opportunity to reach our youth, typically for an hour or two on Sunday, right? Maybe another hour throughout the week or two for a youth group session. And then, of course, active ministers like you and Darren, who's your youth minister, and what is his actual title?
Darren.
Yeah, it's Darren. But anyway, I know Darren engages those youth throughout the week as well. And so, those youth get 3 or 4 hours, unless they grow up in a good Christian home, that also, they get 3 or 4 hours a week of interaction with Christ. At Lemoyne, they get this opportunity all week long, from Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon until they leave at 11 on Friday. Right. They're engaging with Jesus Christ, whether it is through the interactions on the ball field or the team building course or archery. Everything's designed to keep the focus on praising Christ.
Yeah, and I might throw in at this point that when they come to camp, we do, anyway we have in years past. I assume we're doing it this year. I guess I shouldn't speak out of turn, but we have a couple of expectations for the students. Like when they get there, we ask them for their cell phones, and to see a student hand in their phone and know that they're not going to have it for the next 5 days, there's sometimes weeping and gnashing of teeth. But
Actual weeping.
Actual. I'm not.
And gnashing of teeth.
I'm not being sarcastic in that, but it's neat for them to be able to experience the fact that they can live without a cell phone, without a TV, without an Xbox, without an iPad, whatever the case may be. Corey, you're not overly addicted to your. Well, maybe you are. I don't know.
No.
But is giving up your phone for a week a hard thing to do at camp?
No.
No. Are you glad that we have students do that?
Yes.
You think phones would be a distraction?
Yes.
I just want to say I did not tell him how to answer that question. But
I would like to add something, because this is funny that you say this, and she may have to correct me, but I'm nearly 100% certain that your daughter, the last time she came, she walked into my office and voluntarily handed me her phone, and she said, "I don't even want it for the next week." and I'll never forget that, because it was so special to me to see someone who was so ready to engage with Christ, and it was such a neat thing.
Well, Kenzie, if you're listening to me, and Colby too, my other son, I love you guys, and I'm proud of you for being willing to do that.
Amen.
But anyway, so we have those expectations on the students. The churches, obviously, they can help financially and being committed to that. But maybe you attend a smaller church and your church isn't able to give those funds. We have a few of those in our in our area here. Man, there are ways though that those families are still involved. Maybe they send helpers out for a day to help cook the meals. They come to camp during the season right before camp starts and do a job around the camp. Maybe clean gutters or change air filters or whatever the case is. And I don't want to underestimate just sending someone from your camp to work a week, to be there with the students and to make that presence.
Amen.
Man, it takes a lot for a person to commit to go and do a week at church camp. If you have a job, you got to take time off, and maybe you're burning your vacation, and you're like, "Is this how I really want to spend my vacation?" Maybe you got to figure out what to do with your own kids. Maybe if you're a wife and you're coming and your husband can't cook, maybe you got to cook meals for a week in advance. Maybe vice versa. If you're a husband and your wife doesn't cook, you're cooking meals for a week in advance. However that plays out. But I have never, in my experience, had a person come to camp, work a week with those students from any church, whether they come to go to my church or any other church, and leave regretting the fact that they gave a week at camp. They always, it may even start off terrible in the week, but by day 3, they're building a relationship with a student that I can't build a relationship with and you can't build a relationship with, but for whatever reason, they're clicking with that student and they're changing the life of that student. And though we leave physically tired, I'm going to say that the adults leave just as spiritually motivated as any of the students. And, I can speak from my own standpoint. I've spoke at camps and I've had speakers come, and it's amazing to me how I dean junior high, right? Junior high? Yeah, junior high. Had to think that one through. And you bring in a speaker and they're geared to speak to 7th and 8th grade students, and all of a sudden I'm being challenged by the message, and you're like, what in the world's going on here? This is supposed to be for them. Man, churches, if you get involved with your camp, if you can get involved financially, do that. You need to. But if you can get involved personally and just experience that, I promise you it's going to change you too.
I couldn't really say it any better. I mean, that's exactly right. And it all stems really, and I know we're running out of time, and we're going to have to, there's so many more things I could say, but it all really stems from the vision that Melvin Fiskus had back in the 1940s when he was interviewing for a ministry position in Camp Point, and they gave him a tour of the local park. It was his vision. He's like, this is a great place for a youth camp. And they started it down there in Camp Point, Illinois, and they went there for 7-8 years, and then they outgrew the park, and they decided they needed something bigger. In 1957, ended up out where we are. Our current location, been there since 1957. What's that, like 62, 63 years?
Yeah.
And serving Christ, all out of that same vision, and we're still ministering to people the exact same way that they ministered then.
Sure.
And that's so neat. The things have changed. We've got these beautiful all-weather cabins now with air conditioning and heating and storm shelters built in so that your kids are safe. We have the modern kitchen that can offer all of those wonderful things. We've got meeting space and rooms for rentals. You know, if someone wants to come out, like I said, these quilter groups that come out, they might come with 20 ladies, 25 ladies. We'll feed them. We will pamper them, and they leave there full, and they leave there fulfilled.
Yes.
And that's our opportunity to serve, all because of that vision all those years ago that continues on today. But we do it all. All of those things that we do is to fulfill that original vision that Melvin had all those years ago, and our faithful brothers and sisters, who still, many of whom are alive and serving today, that cleared the ground 62 years ago that we reside on. We're still reaching the kids for Christ.
Yes.
And we extend that to the adults as well. We have stuff for senior citizens. We've got our Senior Saints Retreat and Day, that usually the first weekend in April. And again, all this stuff can be found out on our website, lemoinecamp.org. Our Facebook page, we try to send out all that information. But it's all designed really just to draw anyone and everyone that comes on those grounds into a more intimate relationship with Christ.
Yes.
We do that, with regard to the youth, because we are a Christian youth camp. I don't want to overlook that by saying we've got stuff for everyone, because we do have stuff for everyone, but we focus on those youth.
Yes.
And we do that. You might say we tier our programming, our education for our youth, in ways to engage them where they are, just as Christ engaged individuals where they were. So our younger kids, they might, they'll come to camp, maybe 5 years old through 3rd grade, and all they're going to really learn about is God, who He is and what He has done. And then, they get into 4th grade, and that's where we introduce them really to Jesus and who He is. Mm-hmm. And, then they get in that 5th and 6th grade level. And that's where we begin to engage them with Christ and how Christ interacts with them. And that's where they'll get their first exposure, at least at Lemoyne Christian Service Camp, to a hymn of invitation, an opportunity to come to Christ. We don't shove Him down their throats. We encourage them to come to Him on their terms. But it's there that they'll get one invitation that week. And then junior high kicks in. That's where we might offer an invitation 2 or 3 times throughout the week. And into high school, where we offer it every single night, because we want to make sure that these kids are engaging. And so we kind of tier it, if you will. Honestly, I could go on and on. There's a lot of information at lemoinecamp.org. I cannot encourage you enough to go check out the website. It's ever evolving and growing. But I want to thank both of you. I want to thank you, Corey, just for being such a fantastic young man who is such a testimony of the power of Lemoyne Christian Service Camp. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you as that proud dad, as a fellow pastor, as a supporter, just for everything that you do. And please pass that on to your church. I cannot thank Liberty Christian Church enough.
All right, we'll do that. I want to thank both of you for being here. And I want to say, if you're listening to this and you know somebody who needs Christ, a student specifically, get them to camp this summer. Find out where your camp is, get them there, and get involved with it yourself.
And sweet is the way He gently takes me by the hand and helps me down